on your phone, there's a whole world full of girls you could be looking at, homie. It's true, between me and you, it's only $5 and watch what they do. Let's get high, lose track of time. Come on, man, you know I'm a damn good time. Yo, if they're gonna post it, no clothing, oh my god, so exposed and everything. You might as well see everything, every inch, never leave or grow a need. Wait, maybe you should DM, be friends, pretend, a boyfriend, the deep end. She needs men, she needs you and your twos. Get out of my head, get out of my mind. I need to focus, I'm wasting my time. You make me feel hopeless, I'm wasting my prime. Fuck it, I'm going to war with my mind. I'm in control, my body and soul. Never again will you ever take hold. I've got a purpose outside of this hole, and I'll turn this feeling into something more. I could change, rearrange my brain. Thoughts and energy push through pain. Loneliness is a passing phase. A better life, it starts today. Once hopeless and broken, now I'm in motion. Just gotta stay focused. Keep moving, keep growing. Never look back, got a new path chosen.
There's a time when we are weak, when we are broken. That's when we're left open. In darkness, it's all of our flaws that keep us hopeless. Numb our minds and choke us. I'm in control of I'm taking off. I'm climbing up this hole. I'm finding my soul. It's my control.
Go. We used to have fun, hang out and smoke. Watch a little you know what a show. Drink a little bit of this, little that to cope. Yeah, wait, we used to have fun, right? Sleep in short days, but the long nights. You always love to go play, what a fun guy. But now you seem so lame, what a shame, right? Hey, come back, let's get high. We can have another run at the good times. We can have a little fun, just recline, me time. Hit over the wheel, you'll be just fine. Yeah, you know I'm always here for you. Life gets hard, there's a lot of fear for you. You know I can make it all disappear for you. Only one time and I'll cheer for you. No, I don't wanna get back to a place that when the dark takes hold. Gotta make my way to the light, feeling better inside every time I say no. I'm in motion, yeah, chosen, different path, but we rap with the having control. I'm back, baby, better than ever, no drag, taking back everything I left lately. Feel like me, I'm back, crazy. I took all that pain, put that energy to change. I will never be the same, I will never be a stain.
There's a time when we are weak, when we are broken. That's when we're left open. In darkness, it's all of our flaws that keep us hopeless. Numb our minds and choke us. But I'm in control of I'm taking off. I'm climbing up this hole. I'm finding my soul. It's my control.
How's everybody going? Oh, we got stuff to talk about today. So, first off, I am having a special kind of day. Okay. So, let's start off over here. Okay. So, I've had a very long day. I went mountain bike riding for 3 hours. I finished setting up this new computer. It's not going perfect, but that's okay. And there was a fire in my house. I don't know if you can see. This guy caught fire, melted. I thought someone was burning bread or something. Yeah, it's here you can kind of get the gist of it. So there was nothing really going on with it. There was only one thing plugged in, and it wasn't even doing anything. It was a plug for charging a phone, iPhone. But there wasn't an iPhone plugged into it. But yeah, so don't buy the GE surge protector. Which one is this one? Yeah, just don't buy this one. The one from 2013. So if it's still available, don't buy it. Look at that. Just. Yeah. So, anyway, we're doing a watch along today. We're going to have some fun. Hopefully everything is set up correctly. We'll find out.
If we have learned anything in the last 3 weeks,
I don't like that it autoplays. That really does bother me. Okay. I'm gonna have to turn off autoplay yet again. I know I did that before, but hopefully you all can hear me. All right, let's go to watch along. There we go. Dual screen seems a little high. There we go. All right. Up there. There we go. Okay. I don't know why it's saying Facebook. I don't care about Facebook. I'm just gonna put hi. Hi. Let's see. Hi. Don't be shy. Say hello. Okay. All right, let's do this. Let me see. I think we had it down already. Rosary in the Bible. I don't know if we finished it, but it's already kind of. We'll check out. No, we already did her. We did that. Okay. All right. I think we're gonna do a little bit of Dan today, and we'll do a little bit of Nora today. Yeah.
People still call me a witch, and honestly, I get why. For most of my adult life, I was very involved in witchcraft. Rituals, crystals, spirituality, all of it. But what they don't know is that I left that all behind when I found Christ. And now, I'm Catholic. Today, I want to share how that happened, the truth behind my past, the years I spent as a Protestant, and why I finally found peace in the Catholic Church. So first, let me tell you a little bit how I actually got involved in witchcraft in the first place. So I was raised in a very evangelical household. I was homeschooled. My mom really made sure that I was as isolated from the secular world as possible up until the age of about 13. I really wanted to go to public school. None of my friends were homeschooled, so I really wanted that socialization. I was kind of a square peg when it came to just going to school. Now, this was around 1993. Back then, a lot of the trends were like vampires, things that were
93.
goth, things that were kind of creepy and evil. This was just something that became really
Creepy doesn't mean evil, and most of these people are not evil. They're literally the opposite of evil.
popular in the early 90s. I went straight to that. I always was very fascinated with things that were dark, and particularly the occult, because I had heard so much about it in a negative way. It just started to pique my curiosity, and that's kind of how this whole thing started. I ended up
Just remember, most of the occult is modern products by toy companies. By modern, I mean like the 1920s, so it's not actually ancient occultish stuff. It's just mostly BS. So don't fall for the BS.
searching out different new age bookstores that had all different kinds of books on witchcraft, things like tarot cards, crystals, how different candles work, incense. Use these items and have intentions when you're using them. It's not meant to be used in a dark or evil way, but I did want to feel this empowerment of being able to be in control of my spirituality and things that would be happening around me. At that point, I started doing rituals. I started looking at the moon cycles, charging crystals, which is something where you take your crystals and put them outside during a full moon, and this is supposed to cleanse them and recharge them full of energy. A lot of this stuff, people are really into it these days still because it really seems harmless. You're not out there trying to do bad things to people. This is just kind of you connecting with the universe, you trying to bring good energy into your life and repel bad energy. These things have to do with protection and whatnot. Even though I was doing all of these things, I never really felt quite satisfied with any of it. I wasn't really looking that deep inside myself for why I was doing these things in the first place. I guess I just enjoyed doing it because it felt cool. Although I wasn't always practicing during my whole adult life, I was really into the goth punk scene. In that whole world, obviously, there's a lot of dark stuff. All of this occult stuff was just very normalized. In fact, everyone that I knew who did practice witchcraft, they were never bad people. Say something like, do no harm. It's really bad and dangerous to open up that door where you're starting to cast spells on people, for instance.
So the thing with that is that that's mostly from the craft. That's like from fictional movie. It's not actual practical witchcraft. It's not actual witchcraft. I need to reorganize this now that I've changed everything around. There are books that I have on witchcraft that we can talk about one day.
Practicing with Santeria or black magic. I'm not going to go into all of the names and terminology of things because I don't want people to go and start searching this stuff. I'm sure anybody who's familiar with the occult has heard of Aleister Crowley. So all of my adult life, this is just something that I took part in. I really started getting even heavier into it. I started to attend really dark art exhibits where I would be featured in these art exhibits in Los Angeles, kind of doing satanic ritual. It was very like performance art. I was taking part of that. So it was definitely a step further from having crystals and incense and candles. And it started to go deeper and deeper, and it was getting darker and darker. At that point, I kind of started to feel that, where is this heading? In 2014, I decided to leave Hollywood for good and move to Oregon. I was not a Christian at this point. In fact, I was very anti-Christian, to be honest. Just wanted nothing to do with anything Christian. I met someone and he was Christian, which at first I wasn't really cool with, but I was trying to give him a chance. He attended this church, and one night we were supposed to hang out. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hang out tonight. I have Bible study." Well, how about I just come with you? And he was like, "Yeah, sure." I ended up going to this church, Athey Creek. I liked it. I actually had a really good time. But something going on inside of me, this sense of feeling lost. Like, what am I here for? What am I doing with my life? There was always this desire to have spirituality. It just wasn't being fulfilled. Being a Christian was completely out of the question. In fact, I felt like a heretic even entering the church, given all the things I have done.
For a very long time, I used to talk with my top lip. I used to do like this thing. And then I started noticing people actually on YouTube talk with the bottom lip. And now I speak with my bottom lip, and I can't remember how to speak with my top lip.
And all the things I believe in. But that's the beauty of God. I think this was a very not random situation.
First, the papacy and the New Testament. Let's look at the biblical evidence first. And the first thing I would observe is that the notion of papal. This video will be my summative case against the papacy. I've done lots of debate on this topic, lots of videos on it.
So I read his Why Be Protestant book. I was not impressed by it. It actually lowered my estimation of Gavin overall. It was such a bad book. I still think Gavin's the best Protestant out there, making Protestant arguments. Second best would probably be Matt Whitman. After that, I don't know, Gospel Simplicity, maybe. Then I guess Zim Zoomer, and then everyone else just kind of sucks. I enjoy listening to Jordan Cooper, but his arguments aren't very good.
Written a chapter about it in my book. I'm drawing from all of that. I've never compiled it all together. So this won't be a ton of new information, although actually it will probably for most people because very few people have probably sort of looked at all the different things. So this is my one-stop shop, putting all my work in on this topic into squeezing it down. Not everything. Short, trying to make it short. But just basically explaining a Protestant perspective. Why don't we accept the papacy? The goal is not to attack Roman Catholics at a personal level. I know it's hard to hear your views criticized. I really...
It's about there. I think it's this guy. This way. Well, it's supposed to be in the center. There we go. Woo.
appreciate having Roman Catholic viewers, and I strive to maintain positive interpersonal relationships with individual Roman Catholics.
Yeah, but you're really just trying to convert everybody, so really, who cares? All right, let's keep going.
I have lots of Catholic friends. But at the same time, Protestants are allowed to explain their beliefs. We're allowed to critically evaluate the claims of alternative views and traditions and just explain. You know, I sometimes get the sense people are surprised when Protestants argue for Protestantism and they're getting offended and angry and so forth. And, you know, of course, we're allowed to do the exact same thing that they're doing against us. We're just, you know, argue for what we believe is true,
doing it
especially when
you.
there's so much at stake. The papacy is too important to not talk.
So I want you to hear that again, because this is part of the problem with apologetics. I mean, just 100%. This is part of the problem with apologetics. I'm not even sure what that's supposed to be.
Angry and so forth. And, you know, of course, we're allowed to do the exact same thing that they're doing against us. We're just...
What makes you think that we're doing it against you? That's kind of that's an assumption of bad faith that I think is unjustified. There are some Catholics that I'm sure are involved in polemics, but I'm an anti-apologist, and there's a lot of apologists, and apologists is really about defending their own side, not really about attacking the other side. Are there some polemicists, Catholic polemicists out there? Sure. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
You know, argue for what we believe is true, especially when there's so much at stake. The papacy is too important to not talk about, because this is a very bold claim. And the bolder a claim of authority is, the more important it is to evaluate and say, well, should I?
So I'm curious. To be clear, I've watched like 10 minutes of this already. I don't remember everything that he said, but I'm curious what he's going to say the claim about the papacy is. I know that when I heard it the first time, my initial reaction was, well, that's just not the claim of what the papacy is. So let's see.
I submit to that or not. And it's a very bold claim to say that the current Roman bishop is the modern day successor of Peter, who has an immediate, universal, and supreme power of jurisdiction over the entire church and is capable of speaking infallibly with respect to the definition of Christianity. That's a bold claim. You know, it's almost, so it's like, it's either true or it isn't true, and we got to figure it out. You know, we can't just not talk about this. To a metaphor, if your neighbor said, hey, your next door neighbor says, I'm putting together a party for everyone in the neighborhood. Are you willing to contribute? It's going to cost. If you're true or it isn't true, and we got to be. That's a bold claim. Capable of speaking infallibly, immediate, universal, and supreme power of jurisdiction over the entire church, and is capable of speaking infallibly with respect to say that the current Roman bishop is the...
Let's get what's going on. So, his claim about what the Pope says about himself, what Catholics say about the Pope,
modern day successor of Peter,
is that he is the modern day successor of Peter. I agree with that. That is something that we say.
Who has an immediate, universal, and supreme power of
jurisdiction
over the entire church.
Supreme power of jurisdiction over the entire church. Yes and no. First among equals versus primacy. There's some nuance and argument going on even within the Catholic Church of the divisions between the papal office's political power and the Bishop of Rome's theological authority. And so he's missing that nuance, that argument, that distinction completely. So I'm a husband and a father, and I'm also an employee. I work for a corporation, and I'm also a YouTuber. So I could say I'm in charge of everything in those departments. I'm not technically lying, but that's also very much not the way these roles actually function in actuality. So I'm a stepfather, and my child is in another country going to a school in a foreign country. So I have very little say about what he does or doesn't do. I'm separated from my wife. We were going through a divorce process. Our marriage wasn't recognized by the church. I have a lot of say over what she does only because she allows it. And she has a lot of say over what I do only because I allow it. But that's not the same as if we were living in the same household and making decisions together, where there's more flexibility when it comes to budget, finances, stuff like that. Okay. Well, what about my job? I'm an employee, so I can kind of control what I do during the day. But I'm still under the jurisdiction of my manager, who's under the jurisdiction of his overseer, whatever. Kind of how a church functions, actually, which is kind of funny, ironic. Okay, well, what about my YouTube channel? I'm in charge of that, right? I control what content I put up, but I don't control who sees it. So there's some factors in this equation that Gavin seems to be missing. And he seems to be missing it pretty bad. Okay. So he's missing what it is to be a patriarch of the West. He's missing what it is to be Bishop of Rome, what it is to be Bishop of the Roman See, what it is to be the just different roles. The priest of St. Peter's, like there's just different roles that he has that, yes, adds up to that universal power, but each role in distinct or distinctly doesn't have the same powers as the other role, even if it's the same man exercising that authority. If I tried to exercise my husband authority or my husband rights at work, I'm pretty sure I'd be fired. So yeah, no, this is not. It's not understanding the distinctions of the responsibilities and roles and obligations of the papal office, of the office of the chair of St. Peter.
And is capable of speaking infallibly with respect to the definition of Christianity. That's a bold claim. It's almost so it's like it's either true or it isn't true, and we got to figure it out. We can't.
Yeah, but when you're speaking about the Bible, you're speaking infallibly to your believers. They believe you're correct. If they didn't think you were correct, they wouldn't be following you.
Just not talk about this. To a metaphor, if your neighbor said, "Hey, I'm your next door neighbor says I'm putting together a party for everyone in the neighborhood. Are you willing to contribute? It's going to cost a lot of money, and I would appreciate the help." You might say, "Okay." You could say yes or no if you're able. You can. So it's a pretty modest request. But if your next door neighbor says, "Hey, I'm the king of this neighborhood, and you owe me $1,000 per month to live here," you have no choice but to either figure out it's either true or it's not true. But
yeah, but that's not exactly a good equivalency. So you're using the word king to make it sound impossible, but what about a neighborhood watch? What about a homeowners association that is formed freshly or that was there before you moved in? They have the ability to evict you, to say what you can and cannot build on your own property. And even if you don't have a neighborhood watch, you still have a city commission you have to go through. So your example, while it sounds extreme, really isn't. These functions do exist. And just as they exist for a business or for a private church like the one you probably teach at or preached at, where they have to do reports where they tell how much money they made in their programming, where they sent the money. I've seen these at Baptist churches where they put all their information on the back as reports. Do not throw stones in glass houses, from glass houses.
you're not stepping on his toes by protesting that claim because it's such a gargantuan claim of authority. And this is how
But it's not. It's the structure of how things work.
we Protestants experience claims about the papacy. We're trying to follow Jesus, and someone comes along and says, basically, I'm in charge, and you don't have a valid.
No. And on top of that, he can't go against what Jesus said. So, God's still in charge. Jesus is still the head of the church. Yeah. Kind of basic things.
Eucharist unless you believe all these additional things and so forth. And it's like, of course, we're allowed to explain why we don't accept that and don't think this has a historical basis. That's the claim of this video, that the papacy is a human development within the church, not a divine institution over the church.
It's a both and. It's not a singular thing. It's both a developed thing because it started off as one thing and grew. And it's also a divine institution because Jesus said it and you believe Jesus is divine, so kind of got to deal with that.
In other words, this institution
Unless you're calling Jesus a liar.
is not from God, it's from men. That's the claim. And to establish that claim, what I'll do is lay out my position here, summing up from what I've done. And we'll look first at the New Testament and then the early historical evidence. And then stick to the end where I'll address a practical concern that comes up as well.
We're probably only going to go either 35, maybe 45 minutes max.
Well, what I think is going on in hearts sometimes with the desire for this infallible voice that can settle things and so forth. First, the papacy and the New Testament. Let's look at the biblical evidence first. And the first thing I would observe is that
I've already done this video where I went through and read every single thing the New Testament has on the office of bishop. Because again, there's no pope, it's just a nickname, it's an honorific. There's no actual pope. It's the Bishop of Rome. That's who's in charge. Patriarch of the West is another title that I like. They took it away for a while, but they brought it back. You're confusing an honorific and a title with a role, with a position. In that position, there are different positions.
the notion of papal succession is absent from the New Testament.
And you got to understand that as a Protestant who claims historical Protestantism, you're legitimately a break-off, schismatic sect from the Catholic Church. So even if you want to say that the universal hold isn't true, but it's just confined to the Catholic Church, which I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you were saying that, you're still a schismatic offshoot of that, which means you'd still be under his authority if you wanted to, heal the schism.
From Matthew to Revelation, looking very carefully, you don't get any notion of a Petrine office.
That's not true. That's a complete lie, Gavin. I've read those passages on this channel. I actually have a video saying why I believe the Pope is true, or why I believe
any kind, let alone one that is associated with the city of Rome specifically, or Roman bishops. That whole idea comes about well.
No, the overseers are there in the Bible.
After the New Testament. And so, this is so simple, but it's.
And the New Testament was written after all these offices already existed. I know you like to early date things, but the truth is it was all written after a church already existed.
It's difficult to even argue about this point because there's just no subject matter on the table.
On this rock, I will build my church. If there's an issue, you shall take it to the church. The church shall be organized with an overseer, a Petros, something like that, a priest, an overseer, a shepherd, and I think it's a priest, and a deacon. You got to have those, otherwise you don't have a church. What else? There's a few more. And that's only if you're going to do New Testament. If you're going to go Old Testament and you're going to use, what's his name? Juan Sosa's argumentation, you have a ton of biblical evidence for you call it a Petrine office, but as for a bishop of Rome, for a bishop to lead the church, you have a ton of evidence. So what are you talking about, dude?
It's like if someone gave you a New Testament and said, tell me from this whether Pluto is a planet, you would say, it has nothing to do with that. It doesn't talk about Pluto at all. Or tell me from the New Testament who shot JFK. You would say that's just a completely later separate thing. Well, same with the idea of a Petrine ministry or a
No, it's in there. You have Stephen getting killed. Stephen takes the office of Judas, and then Stephen gets killed, and then another guy takes his office. There's bishop succession, apostolic succession right there. So the fact that you say you don't see it just means you're either reading it with a heavy bias toward your own side, and you're using confirmation bias, and you have blinders on, or you're not very good at reading comprehension.
Petrine office. There's Peter, but there's no Petrine office in the New Testament. And so when people argue for the papacy from the New Testament, an ongoing office.
To be clear, there should be minimum 12, 13 offices, 13 popes, if you will. But there should be 13 bishops minimum. And because most of the bishops of the churches got destroyed with the Muslims, yes, there is still certain patriarchs. So we should be having 12 patriarchs, and we should have many bishops underneath them, and under those bishops, underneath the shepherds, you should have your priest, and underneath your parish priest, you should have deacons. That's how it's set up in the Bible, man. You read the Bible, come on.
In Peter's name and authority, then what is happening is people basically just talk about Peter. And then,
Okay, so let's talk about James. Let's talk about the office of James in Jerusalem. Let's talk about the office of Matthew in, what is it? Alexandria, Egypt. Let's talk about the office of Mark. I think it's Mark. Is it Mark or St. Andrew in Alexandria? I mean, we can have these conversations. Why are you acting as if history doesn't exist? Our tradition doesn't exist.
and assume succession from Peter rather than establish it. But that's a problematic move because Peter is an apostle, and the office of apostle is a redemptive, historically unique office. The idea of a successive office stemming out
is established in the Bible with the passing on of hands, laying on hands, and the passing of breath. This was done for Stephen. It's in there.
from Peter, imbued with his authority in some sense, can't simply be asserted, that needs to be demonstrated. The New Testament gives us a lot of information. It's reasonable to expect that if there was this supreme office over the church, it'd probably come up somewhere, if not in the New Testament, at least.
I mean, it's in there, but the way that it developed over time isn't, because that happened over time. So you don't see the Mongols being mentioned, you know?
In the surrounding literature outside of the New Testament in the first century and then going into the second century.
I mean, literally one of the popes is one of the church fathers. It's kind of a big deal.
Somewhere you're going to get an echo
I'm not talking about Peter, by the way.
of this. You're going to get some consequence from this if it's actually true historically that there is a Petrine office over the church. We learn a lot about the offices of the church in the New Testament. You just consider in the pastoral epistles, for example, all that you learn about presbyters and deacons and these qualifications lists, multiple qualifications lists, lots of other information about the need to pay them and how many witnesses are needed to bring a charge before them, and on and on and on. There's lots of information about the offices of the church in the New Testament. Almost, presbyters are mentioned or referenced or alluded to in almost
I just said that against you.
every book, starting with Acts, all over Acts, you get elders in churches, and then moving forward, almost every other book of the New Testament says something about the leadership or offices of the church, even in relation to the unity of the church. Offices are laid out, Ephesians 4:11 and following, for example, flesh out what are the offices of the church in relation to the unity and maturity of the church. Paul is saying God gave these offices so that the church would attain unity and maturity. And same with 1 Corinthians 12, another passage like this, the offices of the church unto the unity of the church. And boy, is it suspicious here that we don't ever get a single verse anywhere that ever says, oh, by the way, there's a supreme and infallible office over all these other.
Okay, well then we don't have a Trinity. So there goes that. That's going to be problematic for you. Oh, we don't have English. We don't have any of the classical distinctions of theological God. So, the whole incorporeal, infallible, omniscient, all-powerful. I mean, that's all out the window. That's all development. Yeah, we don't have the names of the apostles either. We don't really have the names of the New Testament. So we don't have the names of the New Testament. We don't know who wrote the New Testament. We don't have Trinitarianism. We don't have Trinity. We do have evidence for adoptionism, which is a heresy. Yeah, it's almost as if your argument destroys the credibility of all theological development and dogma as it exists today. You should get together with another guy that I like watching called Dan McKellen.
Offices. That would be the most important thing the New Testament could tell us if it were in fact true. If Jesus and the apostles envisioned an ongoing office of supremacy and infallibility in the church, it's reasonable to expect
first among equals, called to be the servant of servants. Feed my sheep. After I'm gone, guide your brothers.
That it'd show up. There'd be some kind of reference. Again, think about what's at stake with the papacy. If the Bishop of Rome can speak infallibly, such that the boundaries of obligatory Christian belief are in part determined by his pronouncements, if you're going to locate a supreme power of...
There's only a few, and the things that he's ruled on are not controversial. They're controversial for you, but they're things that most Christians have agreed on from the beginning. So,
jurisdiction over the church and the capacity of infallible pronouncement in one man, that has implications for...
Yeah, it's like a viceroy or president or king. Maybe your problem is you're anti-monarchical.
Every single aspect of how Christianity works. There could be nothing more important to know, and yet you don't even have... Not only do you not have information about a supreme and infallible Petrine ministry or office in the New Testament, you don't have any information about a Petrine office at all. So this is...
You do. It's through implication.
This is the first problem. In the New Testament, you don't have a Petrine office. Now, we'll see the same thing, by the way, with the historical evidence outside of the New Testament. So if someone's going to say, oh, you're assuming sola scriptura, or you're making an argument from science.
Okay. So I'm beginning to worry about Gavin's IQ. Because either he's a liar or he's not too bright.
What about the historical data outside of and after the New Testament? What do you see coming into the mix along the way? Well, you can probably tell a little bit of where this is going to go based upon what I've already said about the patristic views of the New Testament and some of these passages. But essentially, the papacy gives every appearance of what I often call an accretion, a slow, historical, gradualistic development.
But that's what it is. It's a slow, historical, gradual development that began with the Bishop of Rome, began with the seat of Peter. There's two. There's one in Antioch, one in Rome. So, let's go through the basics, Gavin. Peter and Paul were martyred in Rome. That's through tradition. Then their blood became the seat of the church there. Their successor was living in an underground church, was doing things secretly. His successor after that, I believe it was that the third one, was a little bit more open. You have the letters written by a pope within the first 100 years. Then you have, after that, a Bishop of Rome in Rome, undeniably. So, there's a Bishop of Rome in Rome. The office exists. All the churches that are recognized as being real churches are churches that have bishops. Rome is mentioned as being a real church, but they don't mention who is the Pope sitting at the time. But they don't mention any churches without a bishop as being real churches. So that means, through implication, that it had a bishop. It's not hard. It's not difficult. Okay. So, did the Pope and the office of Bishop of Rome get more and more power over time? Political power? Yes. Did it gain more authority over time? Yes. Does that mean it didn't exist? No. Does it mean that it didn't have powers and authority from the beginning? Of course it did, because even the first holder of that seat, Peter, was considered the leader.
Power and centralization of power in the Western Church. So the first point here is that in the earliest times, it doesn't look like you have a single bishop of Rome at all.
You're going to go.
So not only do you
2 more
not
minutes.
have a single bishop who's supreme and in certain conditions infallible, you just don't
I mean, I just mentioned it.
have any single
And I've actually gone through all the popes before in here before too.
bishop in Rome. And I'll document that in a second. As you go forward then, and it's just building. Century after century,
There's gonna
building,
be way
building,
more
building.
stuff, but
And
it's
it takes a
just-
long time to get to
Yes.
the picture painted at Vatican I. Now, let me address something right up front here. Before
So that's arguing against Vatican I and the office as it existed in Vatican I, which is like the 1500s. It's 1,500 years of development later. And the way that it existed in 1,500 is not the way it exists now in the year 2025. So this is bad argumentation. All right, guys. Okay. God forgives you. So forgive everyone. Forgive your enemy. Forgive your neighbor. Forgive yourself. Forgive your family. And God loves you. So love your enemy. Love your neighbor. Love your family. Love yourself, and love God above all. Have a great night. Here comes the music.
Hey man, listen up closely. I know lately you're a bit lonely. Did you know on your phone there's a whole world full of girls you could be looking at, homie? It's true, between me and you, it's only $5 and watch what they do. Let's get high, lose track of time. Come on man, you know I'm a damn good time. Yo, if they're gonna post it, no clothing. Oh my god, so exposed and everything. You might as well see everything. Every inch, never leave or grow in need. Wait, maybe you should DM, be friends, pretend a boyfriend, the deep end. She needs men, she needs you and your twos. Get out of my head, get out of my mind. I need to focus, I'm wasting my time. You make me feel hopeless, I'm wasting my prime. Fuck it, I'm going to war with my mind. I'm in control, my body and soul. Never again will you ever take hold. I've got a purpose outside of this hole, and I'll turn this feeling into something more. I could change, rearrange my brain. Thoughts and energy push through
left open.